Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you have been enjoying the sessions. We had 2, 3 really meaningful sessions since morning. And this is going to be a very interesting session for sure because I'm really excited for this. Those who are sitting behind, I think there are some chairs, vacant here. If you want to grab the first chairs, please come and, sit there. So the topic of this session is moving out of branches or building branches like building branchless banking, or maybe we can call it a digital banking. But this is very interesting, but I don't know where to start from. And let me start with me myself as well, Avinash. So Avinash, I live in Vashi, and Vashi is a very planned city. So there are a lot of banks in only one sector. So within a vicinity of maybe 1 to 2 kilometers, there are some 15 branches and some 16, 17 ATMs. My question is, will they remain there for next 3 years, 5 years, or they will, vanish over the years?
A very good afternoon to all, and thank you for having me here, Amol. And coming back to your question, for the next 3 to 5 years, if I have to make a guess, I think they will still be there. Maybe some ATMs may move away because cash is obviously, especially in the urban segment, has sort of, to some extent, I mean, people have taken to the digital payments in a big way. But I see the physical branches still staying for a little more time. Okay. While obviously the shape of the branches have changed. I mean, branches used to be much bigger in size. The activities which used to happen at the branches are now very different. I mean, the idea here is that, okay, the financial advisory part is what should actually move to the branches rather than the typical servicing. So next 3-5 years, I think it would be a safe bet. Okay. If you were to ask me, about 10 years down the line, I mean, I would have really struggled.
Okay. But what is the strategy that the banks are adopting today? Considering it's a very vague situation, they do not know whether we should have a directly or completely digital banks, or whether we should eliminate, number of branches that we have, or maybe we should merge with them. I think that's the way PSU banks merger happened. They amalgamated with all the branches. So what is the, strategy that you are adopting at Axis Bank? Are you expanding? Are you maybe consolidating your branches? Or are you just like waiting and watching the situation and, not taking any decision on that front? How's it for you?
So, Amol, 2 ways of looking at this. One, Axis is a wholesale commercial bank, right? I mean, we want to be there for every customer, irrespective of, the channel which the customer actually chooses to engage with us. I mean, if the customer wants us at, to visit us at a branch, we will be there at a branch for them. If the customer wants to interact on the digital channels or, through some of the e-commerce sites, like a lot of customers have nowadays started doing, I mean, we would want to be there. So from our perspective, I mean, this question to a certain extent is answered. I mean, at least for the next 2-3 years, we see the count of branches only growing. We will be there. Okay. Does it mean that, okay, the digital focus is essentially coming down? Absolutely not. Okay. I mean, see, banking means very different thing to different people. I mean, even after so many years of banking, at Axis, our market share is 5%, right? So effectively, if we have to try and reach out from 5% to 7% or take it well beyond that, I mean, we want to be present wherever the customer actually goes. And that is the strategy over here. There is no doubt and no denying the fact that, okay, digital gives you the outreach. Okay. Digital actually gives you a very disproportionate mechanism of actually, addressing customer issues. Okay. I mean, if a customer actually, if all the customers that we today have, where to sort of get into the branches, obviously it will be very difficult. So what we are essentially trying to do over here is, like I said, we are looking in terms of offering everything that you would otherwise have done at a branch digitally. Okay. So the acquisition journey, I think most of the banks had already picked up. We have also picked up the servicing journey. I mean, we have a project that internally we call as Branch of the Future, where, using the mobile app, some of the more common service requests which typically a customer comes back to, it could be KYC updation, it could be PAN card updation, transfer of branches, something of that sort, right? I mean, all of those items are now available digitally. Okay. But having said so, there is a segment out there, right? It could be the senior citizen, it could be in some of the smaller places where the customer is probably a lot more comfortable actually still coming to the branch. Okay? So we will be present in those places. Interestingly, as a bank, about a year and a half back, we have also started a very focused initiative around, the Bharat segment. Okay, and Bharat, as you can well imagine, constitutes, the younger demographics who have mobile phones and who are very, very comfortable. But it also has got another demography out there, which would still want, some kind of small bank branch to sort of go and correlate, right?
So good that you spoke about the Bharat strategy, and that's where my next question is. When you look at the Bharat, financial inclusion and all those things we keep talking, but obviously demography is a benefit. Then, but it's a challenge as well because we have a different language, different people, different regional dialects, and most of the digital is still betting high on the English, right? So when we speak about giving those basic services to the customers, specifically which are in Bharat and India as well, how difficult actually it is for you to fit that 1,000 square feet of branch into a 5.5-inch smartphone?
So, like I said, we are actually, the journeys that you end up building, right? I mean, the way to look at it is we look at the problem statement, we look at the demographic, and then we basically try to, build the journeys. So that is where, the entire concept of UI, UX becomes so important. What we have seen here is, and whenever we actually do any kind of an upgrade, right, on UI UX, typically it's done in a very controlled kind of a manner. I mean, we'll first roll it out to 5%, then we'll roll it out to the next 10%, so on and so forth. We have seen the responses to be very different across the age groups. Okay. The latest upgrade that we ended up doing around the mobile app, right? When we started this particular journey some 3-4 months back, I remember the younger age group was giving a fairly cool reviews around the same. Okay, they were saying that okay, it looks much cooler than most of the other typical apps which is out there. And then we found that okay, when we actually ended up reaching out to the customers of the senior bracket kind of a thing, I mean their feedback here was that boss, thoda font thoda chota hai. Okay, I mean, so as we tried to sort of, include a whole bunch of things in that particular, the digital estate that we essentially had, okay, we realized that, okay, this is the feedback. So this is something very continuous that we end up doing. Having said so, I mean, if you think about it, you can open an account through your mobile app. You can do most of your servicing through a mobile app. I don't know when was the last time you have gone to a bank branch. At least while I work for a bank, I can assure all of you that, okay, I have not been to a branch for doing banking business now for a very, very long time. I'm sure it must be over a decade. The only reason why we still go is potentially only to sort of, operate our lockers. So the digital estate is not really a problem. We can basically include virtually everything within that. The more important thing is, getting the journeys right as we try to sort of reach out to different customers. Okay, like I said, demographics, their felicity in terms of the language, etc., can become an issue sometimes. Those are the items that we are focusing on more now.
Very meaningful thoughts, Avinash, and obviously I echo you. But when you say that, when was the last time I go to bank? I think this is a very valid question. Most of us have not go to a bank, but let me tell you, there is a need to go to a branch as well. And because there are a lot of external factors which still are not compliant with maybe digital. And for example, maybe we have a robust banking system, great UI and UX and everything. But let me tell you, tomorrow you have to go to a visa office. What you need is the print of the statement. And they will not accept it unless it has a stamp of the branch, for which you have to go to a branch. Second option is you do not need a check maybe to give someone a money, but you need a checkbook to prove that you have an account with the branch. So without cancelled check, nobody is opening your bank accounts in many, or maybe not accepting your payments. So in that way, you still need a branch. So how are you trying to look at these external factors which will still kind of pull you down? No, you need a branch. You need to provide this service to the customers because you cannot offer this digitally because external services are not ready yet.
So like I said, I mean, we don't have that doubt. I mean, at the moment, we are still saying that, okay, we are going to have more branches for sure. Okay. Your point is valid. to a certain extent that when it comes to say visa services or for that matter certain mortgages, etc. Right? I mean, you definitely need the physical touch at this point of time. But I am fairly optimistic. I mean, look at where we were about 5 years ago versus where we have essentially reached. Okay, these are all services which are actually changing and changing very very rapidly. Okay, as we speak, I mean, at this particular point of time, even when it comes to vehicle hypothecation, etc., a lot of state governments have started sort of moving in that direction. So it's a matter of time. My own sense is the next 2 3 years, we will have at least 80 90% of these services that we typically end up interacting with in a physical world. Okay, purely from a purpose of compliance or from a purpose of giving some kind of validation about a banking relationships. I mean, all that will move. Uh, the entire railroad of what NPCI has done, the entire railroad of what UIDI essentially has done, that what we know as the Bharat stack, right? The India stack. I mean, that's amazing. My own sense is it's just a matter of time. We need to be a little more patient. We have had 2 years of pandemic, which has led to digital acceleration, but there are some ideas which are still under incubation. My own sense is that, okay, we will be there.
Okay. So, with the inputs that you shared, if I ask you, then I know again it's very hypothetical and difficult, but if you could give a sense, because in Europe there are a lot of digital-only banks, there are digital-only insurance companies, and by the way, they're regulated one. How do you see India? Do you see that complete wholly owned digital banks going ahead? There are neo banks, but again, they're not regulated. Do you see completely regulated digital banks in future? If yes, how long do you think will it take for India to have those banks?
So there are conversations around that which is happening, as you are already aware, right? So it is something which is there in the regulatory domain. I would not want to sort of try to second guess in terms of what is happening, but it would, at a personal level, I believe that okay, it's an idea which will see the light of the day sometime. Okay, but again, digital banks will end up targeting a set of consumers. I mean, like I said, India is an underpenetrated when it comes to banking. Okay, Axis Bank, despite being around for the last close to 30 years, like I said, I mean, we have managed to do an outreach to 5% of the customers. Okay, I mean, as we try to outreach to more, obviously, digital is going to be the avenue, but it cannot really be the only avenue. Because again, the way commercial banks look at things and the way neo banks look at things is very different. Okay, for a commercial bank, I mean, they will be looking in terms of servicing the large corporates. They will be looking in terms of servicing the mid corporates. There could be trade, a whole bunch of other kind of financial product offerings, which the typical digital banks alone are not going to focus on, at least in the initial few years, for sure. Okay.
And lastly, again, if you could explain more on the rural side, because even despite RBI having these norms of there should be a branch wherever there is a 5,000 population, the ratio doesn't, showcase that because we still have very limited branches compared to the population that we have. So how actually then the digital or maybe the branchless banking will help? Again, we discussed the challenges that we face in rural India, but will we really overcome that in terms of the regional dialects, the languages, and maybe we'll have our own branches specifically on app in the, what you can say, the regional language or the mother tongue of the people of the different states. Do you see that happening?
So even digitally, the focus on the regional dialect, etc., is coming out in a very very big way. I think that's the next big frontier that most of the people will sort of focus on. Okay, we are, for example, looking in terms of sending out SMSs depending on what is the preference that the customer has essentially sort of given. So everybody is actually doing something in that direction, but conversely, if you look at the sheer explosion of digital payments, right? I mean, we are already about 1 billion transactions per month. I think the next target is reaching 1 billion transactions in a day. If you think about it from a mobile phone, to be honest, the younger generation, etc., do not really see a divide in terms of languages, is what we have seen. What we have to try to do is, we have to try to make it a lot more interactive. I mean, as of now, the apps are a little more staid. I think in the days to come, you will essentially find more use of emojis, more use of GIFs, etc., which will sort of reduce the reliance on language itself. Okay, and we are seeing. Some of the apps which is coming out there is now looking lot more interactive than what the previous apps used to be. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So it's going to be a combination of both. Okay, I mean, people are going to actually focus in terms of dialects, in terms of regional languages, and what will happen is the UI UX is going to become a lot more interactive, lot more videos, lot more GIFs, emojis, etc. Which will sort of reduce the amount of text that you currently see.
Okay. But one again important question for the banking and specifically, in fact, BFSI as a whole is the security, the privacy. Do you see that branchless banking or specifically digital have more challenges in terms of privacy and security compared to the branch banking?
On the contrary, I think in the digital world, it is a little easier for you to basically build, those kind of, all kind of data privacy walls, right? And when it comes to data privacy walls, if you look at the Data Protection Act and even where the regulators are essentially going, they are not only talking in terms of the need to know kind of an information. There is a lot of focus even in terms of what the administrators can do, including the technology administrators. I mean, previously, about 5-7 years back, this was not even a conversation which was essentially happening in terms of what the technology administrator can see. It was supposed to be a norm that if you are a super admin, I mean, you have free access. Now, no longer the case. Under the Data Protection Act, I mean, there is already a lot of push in terms of, masking, encrypting the data, especially the PII, SPDI kind of a thing. Already, all banks are actually, taking a lot of steps in that particular direction. So, the digital world is a lot easier over there. In terms of the physical world, if you have seen at most of the bank branches now, the information that say a sales guy or an RM basically ends up seeing is only related to the relationships that he or she is actually managing. Okay, so there are a lot of controls which have actually been done in that particular manner. So at a branch, the exposure is going to be limited, but at a broader level, I mean, I think it's much easier to control.
Sure. So, Avinash, obviously, I have 1 or 2 more questions, but a little time left. But what I will do is, because this is an interesting topic, I will ask audience if has any 1 or 2 questions quickly. If anybody has any quick questions, maybe we can take it with Avinash. Yes. Can we have a mic there?
Hi, so my name is Sanchita. I'm from Google Cloud. I wanted to particularly ask you, right, at a bank or a financial institution, between the process and the tech, right? Usually, where do you see, where do you see the challenge in terms of implementation or slowness to adopt to anything new? For example, I do believe that, I use the major 3 banks for my savings account, Axis, HDFC, ICICI. But there are some processes that are absolutely only on the branch that can be done, right? I wanted your inside out view that do you see a tussle between, tech and process in terms of the way a bank runs to modernize?
A very interesting question, actually. There is no tussle. What's happening is, I think, between the tech and the process, there is also the element of risk. There is also the element of compliance. There is also the element of InfoSec. What I have essentially seen is, and I can speak for Axis. Okay, we have a fairly elaborate product management process, change management process, etc. And the areas where generally there is a lot of time nowadays being spent is in terms of getting things right. Okay, from a product perspective, from a process perspective, I mean, people do come up with fantastic journeys. Okay, and the more fantastic the journey, you will suddenly find the tech guys also becoming a lot more energized in terms of the fact that okay, we want to sort of implement the same. And then there is where the complication suddenly starts about the fact that okay, hey, you want to do something. I mean, you want to do something on cloud. I mean, is it allowed? Is it encrypted? I mean, what is the amount of? And that is where it becomes a little more complicated and it gets a little more dragged. My own sense is that this is something which will also change. If you look at the agile philosophy, or if you look at ops, which actually sort of move forward to a DevSecOps kind of a situation. I think it's a matter of transitioning to that mode. Right now, a lot of these things are being done sequentially. Once people start doing a lot more agile pods, start co-creating in terms of solutioning, and even have some of the more control functions participate, I think this particular question will start diminishing in terms of its relevance itself.
Okay, I think thank you. Thank you for your question. I'm so sorry, there are a lot of hands here, but I think the time is really up and the next session is already scheduled here. So I will stop here, but maybe we can take these questions offline while having a tea or coffee. Thank you, Avinash, for meaningful insights here, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to us very patiently. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amol. Thank you all.